What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another late night session for you guys today, and we're going to talk all Thomas Frank, Bryan Mbeumo. Going to touch a bit on Ange again as well. But how is everyone doing out there?
No longer your birthday, Ben?
No longer my birthday. No.
No longer your birthday. No need to be nice to him anymore.
Yeah, thanks for that. But look, let's get straight into it and we'll see what we're thinking. First of all, to talk about Thomas Frank. Ben Jacobs says that Thomas Frank has told Brentford he wants to leave the Spurs. Frank's camp are already in talks over terms, with the Brentford boss the clear front runner now to replace Ange Postecoglou. Sky Sports says that Brentford are prepared to listen to offers for the from Tottenham for Thomas Frank, who are interested in speaking to Spurs if given the permission. And Romano says that conversations have taken place in the last 24 hours with Frank already, with some approaches before Postecoglou's sacking. Tottenham will speak to Brentford. Very positive conversations ongoing. Tottenham are aware of Thomas Frank's position. He wants the job. He's keen on becoming the new coach. So, yeah, things are progressing.
Absolutely. I'm expecting an announcement soon. Obviously, we heard last week, I think on Sunday, the day that all those journalists came out saying they heard that Ange was going to be sacked, we did actually hear that Frank had already accepted the job, and maybe that seems to be coming to pass at the moment. I think for Frank, he probably feels like, look, how much further can he take Brentford? You know, he's taken them mid-table. He's consistently overperformed the wage structure. I think apparently I read every season he's been in the Premier League, he's the highest performing manager compared to the wages. But
wages to points ratio or something.
Yeah, wages to points. And when it comes to the next step for him at Brentford, he probably just feels that this is probably it for him. There's not much more he can do here. Time to test himself at a higher level. And I understand that. And obviously, he's been linked to a number of jobs before. Maybe he never really felt like it was the right time, but now it is. And Tottenham's a good opportunity. Coming into a Champions League, a young squad who, whatever we want to say about how great winning the Europa League is, we all know we underperformed in the league. And yes, there are reasons for that, but that's just the bare facts of the matter. We did underperform in the league, and he probably looks at that opportunity and thinks there's so much that can be done here, probably.
Yeah, and I think the way I'm thinking about it as well, now the kind of emotion of, the raw emotion of Ange going is kind of all settled down now. I'm kind of thinking about this in a different way, and I actually think, all said and done, if you review everything, look at what Frank's done. First of all, I've always said that I'm excited about the Frank appointment, but I actually do think this is the right move. I do think it's going to be better for us, and I think that Frank, what you know from him, very good coach, improves players. Yes, there's a question mark. Can he make that step up? For sure. But I'm just looking at him, and with the squad that we have, I think this could be a really good fit. I really do.
Well, on paper, he's the perfect Levy appointment, isn't he? Let's be honest. Like, Levy will be licking his lips about what Frank is capable of, considering his job. I've said before, I think had we lost that final, it's a no-brainer. Like, this is the obvious choice. Having won the final, now got in the Champions League, and you put yourself in a different space, not just from winning in the Champions League, but a different space in terms of where the club is at with the squad of the manager and the fan base. I think there's opportunity there to kind of build on that instead of disrupting it. So for me, I still don't think it's the right thing, given that we won that final and we're in a different space. But I guess from the hierarchy's point of view, which makes sense, they were probably before the final planning on sacking him, as we've alluded to, and clearly Frank was the front runner before then. So having won the final, for them, they didn't want to change course. They wanted to stick with, okay, we were deciding to do this before the final, and we're not going to change our decision regardless of whether we won. And clearly they maybe wavered a bit and thought, there is something going on here. Do we really want to make this decision? Maybe that's what took so long. They decided to stick with their decision, which I think that they decided before the final. And we heard even, I think from, was it Romano, saying they spoke to Frank before the final, before the end of the season. So I think that would be in line with that. So I think on that basis, Again, I think for Tottenham and for Levy, he's a pretty perfect man in terms of his body of work and what he's done and where we can go. But again, there's a lot of question marks. And as much as he could be another Eddie Howe and Pochettino, he could very easily be another Graham Potter or Nuno. That's where we're at.
My gut feeling is telling me it's the former rather than the latter, to be honest. I really think he's a top coach. I really do. And I think he's going to come in here. He'll get the respect of the players, in my opinion. You know, the players are going through the same thing as the fans now. Very raw emotions of losing a guy that they grew an affinity with and won something with. But at the end of the day, they're professionals and they want what's best of their career as well. So they won't want to throw another season down the drain. So the ones that end up staying, the ones that, because it's going to be hard for some of these players to leave as well, because, you know, are they going to get the right offers for the club? Are they going to be allowed to leave and all this kind of stuff? So at the end of the day, they're professionals, and I think they'll buy into Frank's methods and the way Frank works. Now let's get on to this Bryan Mbeumo story coming from two different sources. And Darren Lewis from the Mirror says that Thomas Frank has told Tottenham he wants to rival Manchester United for 60 million. Bryan Mbeumo. Frank is set to be confirmed as Ange Postecoglou's successor next week and is keen to take Brentford's in-demand forward with him to North London. Tottenham would offer Bryan Mbeumo around 130 grand a week, although bonuses would still leave them short of Man United's package, the pull of Champions League football and Frank, who turned Mbeumo into one of the most feared forwards in the top flight. Alan Nixon says that Tottenham are trying to hijack Manchester United's move for Bryan Mbeumo. Johan Lang, who worked with Frank at Lyngby, will play a key role in negotiations. So, I mean, it's basically, does he want to go join his boyhood club, earn a bit more money, or does he want to stick with Frank, play Champions League football, and come to Tottenham? Which button do you reckon he's pressing?
I think if you're putting the money into the equation, you know, apparently he's demanding 250 grand a week, which would put him 50 grand ahead of Son right now as our highest earner. So will we match that? Is that something we're willing to do with this new Champions League money? Or are we 100%? Or I know we should, but if we're being logical, we would probably tell him you'll be level with Son. That's what I think. You'll be on 200 grand a week, and you'll be a joint highest earner.
They're saying we're only offering him 130.
Who said that?
Well, I just read from the Mirror.
Well, then he ain't coming here if we only offer 130. I can guarantee you that. But if we're willing to at least make him our highest earner, or get close to what he wants, and he knows with Frank, he's got a good thing going. He knows that Frank knows what he's all about and how to get the best out of him. We've got Champions League football. United don't. There's no guarantee United get back in the Champions League next season, albeit they are looking very serious with their reinforcements. They got no European football. Amorim, whatever you want to say, has had a disastrous tenure so far. That's just a fact. It has been disastrous. I know he's not got his players and all that kind of stuff, and that could change next season. But from what we've seen, it's been a disaster so far. So there's no guarantee they get back into Europe next season. So he might look at that, think maybe going Frank, go to Tottenham and really raise my profile. Whereas I go to United, yes, it's my boyhood club and that's where I want to be, but it's maybe a bit of a bigger risk in terms of how many good players have gone to United and just for one reason or another hasn't worked out. Is there a cultural problem there? All this kind of stuff. So I think it would be something to consider, but if we're intent on offering 130 grand a week, getting nowhere near his demands, I think he still goes United. I think the pool is still too strong, I would say. But I think with Frank coming here, I think it gives us a fighting chance. But again,
Frank's probably looking at it and being like, look, when I was Brentford manager, Spurs were the bane of my life, hijacking all the deals that I wanted to do. Archie Gray, they ended up getting Brennan Johnson ahead of me. Now it's my time to shine.
Exactly. Come on, let's do our own kind of hijacking. We've done a few hijackings over the last.
I'm saying we hijacked Brentford.
Not just Brentford. A few just in general. Bergval, we hijacked. Dragoshin. Well, we kind of nearly got hijacked, then hijacked back. There's been a few hijackings, rehijacked. So I think, as I said, I think we can put a hat in the ring. I think Frank could put a good case towards Mbeumo as why he should come here. Whether it's enough, I'm not convinced. I still think he probably chooses the money in United, but at least we got a case forward.